This week on Quality Digest Live, is there a winner in a metrology fight between hardware and software?
Plus, 3 tips to help you onboard new employees. That and more when we come back.
This week's sponsor of Quality Digest Live is Olympus, specializing in easy-to-use microimaging and metrology systems that provide the measurement and images you need.
Welcome back to Quality Digest Live for November 14th, 2014. QDL is your weekly look at who and what is making the news in the world of quality. I'm Mike Richmond, publisher of Quality Digest.
Just back from the AME show.
That's right.
That's right. And I'm Quality Digest editor-in-chief, Dirk Ducharme. Well, you know, everybody talks about the cloud. Everything is in the cloud. Our data is in the cloud. Our apps are in the cloud. Well, according to Gartner research, when it comes to the cloud, maybe our heads are in the cloud. In the article, Gartner highlights the top 10 cloud myths. Gartner research has highlighted some of the most dangerous and misleading cloud myths. Some of these you have heard, I guarantee you. Let's take a look at the first 7. This is a bit of a synopsis of what Gartner has to say. Myth 1, cloud is always about money. While prices are dropping in the cloud, especially for infrastructure as a service, which we call IaaS, not all cloud service pricing is coming down. For example, most software as a service is not coming down. Software as a service, SaaS, if you haven't heard of that. Myth 2, you have to be cloud to be good. This is kind of the one everybody hears. You got to be in the cloud, right? Well, Gartner calls this cloud washing. It is based on, it's really, I mean, think of it, it's kind of based on hype that something cannot be good unless it is in the cloud. Myth 3, cloud should be used for everything. And this is, again, something that we hear a lot, you know, no matter what it is, whether it's, you know, software as a service or infrastructure as a service or storage or backup, whatever, it's all got to be in the cloud. This is kind of related to myth 2, really, if you think about it. And this really refers to the belief that the actual characteristics of the cloud are applicable or desirable for everything. Really, you just got to use your common sense. Not all applications and workloads benefit from being in the cloud unless there are clear cost savings. Unless there are clear cost savings, really, you don't really want to move legacy applications if it doesn't make sense. I mean, you don't need change for change's sake, right? If your legacy systems are working well in-house, there's no need to move them to the cloud. Myth number 4. The CEO said so as a cloud strategy. Well, that one doesn't need a lot of explanation.
Yeah.
You know, those CEOs. Okay. Myth number 5, we need one cloud strategy or vendor. Again, this is just common sense. Many cloud services are almost commodities, a backup, for instance. So a lot of companies offer them. Like I said, cloud storage, for instance. So according to Gartner, a cloud strategy should really be based on aligning your business goals with potential benefits. Just like any supplier, hopefully you don't go to a single supplier for something unless you need to. Same is true for the cloud. Number 6, cloud is less secure than on-premises capabilities. This is something that was really popular for a long time, is the idea, I don't have it in-house, it's out there in the cloud, therefore I'm not really sure I trust it. This is kind of an interesting one, and it kind of persists. But to date, says Gartner, there have been very few security breaches in the public cloud. Most breaches continue to involve on-premises data center environments. Think about that one. So while cloud providers should have to demonstrate their capabilities, once they have done so, there's really no reason to believe that their offerings can't be secure. Myth number 7, cloud is not for mission-critical use. Again, this is kind of tied to myth number 6. Certainly, you have to understand what needs you have and what risk comes with those needs. You need to do your risk analysis for sure. But the fact is, there are many enterprises, and we're not talking just small startups, that are born in the cloud and run their business from the cloud, and clearly mission-critical stuff. There are 3 more myths, which are, and Gartner details them more in the article, and if you just follow the link below the Blair page down there, you can go out there and take a look at that Gartner story. There's actually a link to the full study in that story as well that you might want to take a look at. So the cloud, not for everybody.
Yeah, not for everybody. You know what it reminds me of as I was reading that is I thought about 20 years ago where substitute the cloud for this internet thing.
This internet thing,
right.
right.
It's like all things for all people, really. I mean, that's how people, 94, 95, people looked at that and they said, wow, this internet, you gotta be on it.
You gotta be on it. Yeah, so now it's the cloud. Well, you gotta be on the cloud.
You gotta be on it. Not necessarily, as you say, it's about what you're doing with it. And yeah, I mean, it's an amazing thing.
Well, and we use probably half of what we do is on the cloud.
Sure.
Yeah.
And many companies can say that as well. But yeah, you got to understand what you're using it for and what it really is, not what the myths say it is. That's a really good article there from Gartner. So check that one out. Alrighty, well, actually,
this morning,
early this morning, I returned from Jacksonville, Florida, where I and Quality Digest CEO Jeff Dewar attended the Association for Manufacturing Excellence International Conference, the AME. The AME, as its name would imply, is an organization dedicated to improving manufacturing processes and sharing knowledge. Now, first of all, the first thing you need to know about the show, Dirk, for anyone out there, is this is a really, really good show. There were about 2,000 people in attendance.
Good size.
And they ran the gamut of manufacturing sectors and job titles. Lean, as you can well imagine, was on the tip of everyone's tongue, and we had the chance to meet and mingle with practitioners literally on every stage of the lean journey, from absolute rank beginners to experts and everything in between. The keynote address is focused on the human side of performance improvement and change management. Everyday value stream breakouts focused on topics such as the culture and tools of daily improvement, innovation, and sustainability. The in-depth workshops delved deeper into continuous improvement tactics, and then of course there was the Learning Resource Center, where more than 40 exhibitors offered products and services expressly for this market. It was where we were hanging out most of the time.
Sure.
AME 2015 starts on October 19th next year in Cincinnati. If you are a manufacturing professional, especially if you're engaged in, or especially maybe if you're beginning your lean journey, you're going to want to mark your calendars now for this event. I struggle to think of a better event where you can kind of meet like-minded people, interact with them, learn, benchmark there in real time with folks, because there's a lot of just conversations happening amongst people that are doing very different things, and you can find out what other people are doing and you can learn from them. So for more information about that, I would encourage you to go online, check it out at www.ame.org. Really good information.
Is AME more of kind of a training organization? I mean,
it's everything. They have a great knowledge center where you can have resources to help teach you things about lean and other processes you need to know. It's really an organization that brings people together. People is the overriding theme of what they do. They try to make sure that the presentations are geared towards helping leaders in organizations understand how to motivate people, how to bring them forward, how to respect people, all the things that we know of in lean that you should be doing, and not just the tools of lean, but again, the principles and culture of lean.
So AME is kind of more focused on kind of the soft side of quality, as we say?
In many cases, but a lot of tools too. I mean, I don't want to get have the impression out there that it's not about tools as well. We had a great keynote last night, yesterday afternoon, from one of the architects of the Toyota production system here in the United States, talking about what TPS really is and how it's implemented, and going through the entire stages of that. So really, really good stuff. I was very entertained and very educated, learned a lot at this show, even though we got home very late last night. So again, I would recommend anybody who's in that world, check it out. Again, AME.org. It's a nonprofit organization, so check that out online and find out more about AME if you don't know about them already.
Okay. Now we're going to do something that we haven't really done a whole lot of in the past. We're going to delve into kind of a technical topic for you metrology types out there. There was an article that I think you might find pretty interesting. It was by Ron Rode, who is the executive chairman of the Coordinate Metrology Society, the CMS. The CMS runs the Coordinate Metrology Systems Conference, the CMSC, of which many of you know Quality Digest is the media sponsor. And one of the functions of the CMSC is to educate metrologists on things, I don't know, metrological, is that a word?
Imagine,
metrological?
Metrological, yeah, sure, why
That's
not?
a good word, I'll go with that one.
Sure.
And this is particularly true in the area of large-scale 3D measurement. So in this article, Ron Rode addresses the question, does measurement software, and he's talking specifically 3D measurement software, have the ability to accurately determine scale without the use of scale bars? So like I said, this is kind of a technical article, so bear with me here. So Rode has actually tested and compared the results of this question by initially setting up a system using temperature and material software compensation. So you have software and it knows what the temperature is, knows what the material is, and it does compensation for scale. Next, he checked the accuracy by measuring a NIST traceable scale bar, which was length adjusted for the ambient temperature. So according to Rode, most of the time, the results between these two methods compared within 5/10,000ths of an inch to 15/10,000ths of an inch. That's 5/10 to 15/10 for you machinists out there. So Rode asked, okay, so which one of these methods is truly correct? And the answer is most likely neither. He also asks, is either one sufficient to use with confidence? And the answer is there, sure, probably yes. So here's the thing, and here's where he goes into some detail, and you can get more detail if you read the article. But you take an artifact, like a scale bar, a mechanical thing, right? These are calibrated in a controlled environment under lab conditions and truly are accurate and repeatable under those same conditions. But in the real world, their length must be adjusted relative to ambient temperature. If the temperature changes throughout the day, the accuracy of the system changes as well and has to be reset. For example, if the temperature changes a mere 3 degrees Fahrenheit, an 8-foot scale bar will change almost 2/1000ths of an inch. An aluminum scale bar will be double that, about 4/1000ths of an inch.
That's significant enough.
That is enough, trust me.
Yeah.
So then you look at the scale bar itself. Does the bar expand and contract in a straight manner? Does it bend, twist, and bow with temperature change? Does it come back to its exact position after such movements? Does the scale bar use construction balls, or CBs, mounted in the ends of the scale bar as a reference medium or a bushing to place a pin nest? CBs have a manufacturing tolerance of several tenths. The use of two, one on each end, has the potential to double this and create stack-up error. If you use an SMR, a spherically mounted retroreflector, if that's being used, it has multiple components: a hollowed-out ball, bearing, and 3 mirrors orthogonal to each other. The ball itself has a tolerance, as well as the positioning of the mirrors to true center. So it gets worse, Rode implies. We've just listed all those things. Let's talk about your pin nest. Yeah. Is it fixed? Does it fit into bushings? Is it a light press, or do the bushings have a little slop in them? Is the pin truly centered on the nest? Was the bar calibrated using the pin nest and SMR that you are using? The bushings and pins all have tolerance, and again, tolerance stack-up could exceed the stated accuracy specs of the instrument being used. This is everything just in the scale bar when you take it out of the lab and bring it back onto the shop floor. And now, by the way, factor in the shop floor temperature. Okay. So as Rode points out, numerous variables just reading the scale bar. So what about software compensation then? You say, well, the scale bar is just a problem. What about software compensation for setting scale? Well, what can you use to prove your software compensation when you're on the job site? Well, guess what? You use a traceable scale bar. Which one will be truly correct? They can both be argued for, says Rode, but one positive aspect of the software scaling, and this is kind of one of its selling points, is its continual real-time process. That you're constantly monitoring temperature. The software is constantly compensating for that temperature. This is a real plus. As temperature changes, really, so does the scaling. Now let's consider another component in the mix: thermometers. If you're going to use software, calibrated thermometers are used both in a laser tracker's weather station and also to read part temperature. They also have a tolerance and may lead to inaccuracies. You must also look at the material compensation for the scale bar itself. So there are many types of compositions for a scale, where you got steel, you got aluminum, you composite, maybe even iron. Is the algorithm being used a close approximate, or is it right on? So this is important, Rode points out. Most of you know that laser trackers in particular push the envelope of large-scale close tolerance measurement, and a lot of claims are made for accuracy of laser trackers. But if you look at the tolerance of all the components plus ambient environmental conditions, most of the claims, according to Rode, of true accuracy in the real world may border on, let's say, the questionable. But laser trackers do continue to be the key instruments used for large-scale metrology and with a high degree of accuracy. So given all the stuff that we've just told you up there, kind of the inherent problems that you may find with a scale bar in the real world, the inherent problems you might have with software, what's a metrologist to do? We live, unfortunately, in a material, cut-and-dried world. When it comes to stating accuracy and repeatability, says Rode, there is not a clear-cut answer as to which system, software or hardware, is more accurate. But using both methods in conjunction with each other, which he actually does, Rhodes suggests, you can actually use that to prove both the accuracy and repeatability with a pretty high degree of certainty, proving that an acceptable scale has been achieved in your method, in your measurement. So Rhodes is a sharp guy. In fact, all the metrology experts with the CMSC are sharp men and women. These guys know their stuff. So if you are a 3D metrologist and you want to brush up on your knowledge and skills, we suggest you attend the yearly CMSC. It's a great little show, completely focused on large-scale 3D metrology. And this is the big thing, they are rolling out or have rolled out a personal certification program, you can get a certificate for this, for large-scale 3D metrologists. It's the only one of its kind. And if you want more information on this, you can just visit cmsc.org. And you can get more information there. Really suggest that you attend the show every year. Particularly if you're a 3D metrologist, this is the show you've got to go to. It's basically the only one in the US. There's basically only two in the world. There's this one, there's the LVMC in the UK. So it's good stuff.
And you know what I liked is that Ron's article is very approachable. I mean, this stuff tends to get, obviously very technical, as you can imagine, just from that quick description you gave us. Ron's article is very approachable, and there may be many of you out there who maybe aren't metrologists, quote unquote, but you're doing some of that work. Some of what we just talked about may be familiar to you. Check out CMSC for that as well. I think that you'll find that CMSC is a very welcoming organization. If you were edging into this space, certainly it's a great industry to be in. I mean, it's going to continue to expand,
sure,
I think,
absolutely,
as the technology continues to increase. So, if you're maybe earlier in your career, and again, you're kind of brushing up against some of these topics, and some of what Dirk just talked about is familiar to you, some of it may not be. Check out cmsc.org. I think you'll find that there's information there, and you might want to attend the show next year, which is in southern Florida, Hollywood, Florida.
Hollywood, Florida.
In July.
In July.
So,
Hollywood, Florida in July.
It'll be
sure.
warm. It'll be fun. So
hang up by the pool.
Yeah, that's right.
A lot.
and check out some good presentations too. All righty. Well, moving on now. One of the critical ways that great companies propagate excellence through their various generations of employees is to properly integrate or onboard, quote unquote, new hires into the culture and processes of the organization. The article 3 Tips to Quickly Integrate New Employees, written by Jessie Lynn Stoner, appeared in Monday's issue of Quality Digest Daily, and that article addresses this very important concern. If you think about it, and I do, I think many of you do too, and you accept the idea that an organization is only as good as its employees, it stands to reason that the future of an organization is only as good as its new employees. Everyone always talks about finding great talent, but if you can't retain that talent that you bring into your team, all the work you do to find those folks are going to go to naught. Now, think back to your first day on the job that you have now. Since you're still there, chances are that you were eased into your new role, given a degree of training and support, and made to feel that you were wanted. But what if none of those things happened? What if you were thrown into the deep end in a culture of everyone for themselves, with colleagues who didn't really want to bond with you until they were sure you were going to make the cut, right? Chances are that you would not be at that job today, and that's the point. If you're a skilled and dedicated professional, and all of you out there are, absolutely, the organizations maybe, that failed to onboard you correctly would have lost all the future great work that you would have brought them. Maybe you also lost out on some opportunities that could have come from a longer-term association with that company. I mean, and I was going to say, talk about a lose-lose situation. It just came to me now. Think about the customers of that organization that you didn't have a chance to touch. They maybe lost your skills and talents as well. So it's really a lose-lose-lose situation. It's the company, it's you as an employee, it's the customers as well.
And I would throw into that is that I think people who are confident in their job skills and know the type of environment they should be working in, know the type of environment they can succeed in, I think those people are probably more likely to leave.
Yes.
So it's not just that you're losing perhaps a new hire because they come in and aren't supported. You're probably losing good new hires because those people will not give you much time to prove yourself as a company.
That's an excellent point. That's a really good point. The really, truly great employees not only have to prove themselves to the company's got to prove themselves to that employee.
It works both ways.
Quickly.
Yep.
It goes both ways. So how can you make sure to properly onboard new hires? Jessie Lynn Stoner, author again of this article, suggests 3 important key points. First, provide a clear explanation about the specific work assignment. The key word here is specific. Don't assume that the new hire understands your industry jargon or company shorthand. Explain what they're expected to do on their own when and what they should hand off to others, what resources are available, what deliverables should look like, and when they're due. Err on the side of over-explaining rather than under-explaining. Second, invite and encourage questions. We've all heard the old saying, there is no such thing as a stupid question, right?
Stupid people.
That's right. But it's true. However, it's especially true for newbies in your organization. They have to do more. You have to do more than just tell them that your door is always open, right? You must engage them. You have to go to them, go to the Gemba. You have to go to them and ask directly what's working, what's not, what they find confusing, and what they just plain don't understand. Be persistent so that they understand that you want to help them work through any issues right away. Finally, third and finally, and perhaps most important of all, assign the new hire a peer mentor. You want somebody who is not that person's boss, but a colleague who's doing similar kinds of work and is well liked and respected within the company. This mentor should focus not only on the formal procedures of the organization, but on the often unspoken cultural and social rules as well. There's probably nothing that will help that newbie feel more comfortable more quickly than having a buddy to help model the right behaviors and show them socially around how we do things around here. Not that we got to do it this way because we've always done it this way. You want to encourage new thought, but to make that person feel like you're comfortable within the social environment of the organization. Very, very important. This issue, I think, shows up most clearly in smaller organizations. Many, if not large companies, have formal processes in place that address many or most of these issues. How well they're implemented, of course, is another matter, but at least those processes exist. If you work for a smaller company, however, and you're having trouble with turnover, you really should consider some of the things that Jesse Lee Stoner suggests in this piece. Integrating new employees with potential into the organization and quickly getting them to be contributing long-term members of the team, it's just too important not to pull out all the stops to improve. So read this article and think about what she's saying here. Implement that. The mentorship especially. I think a lot of companies do this. But if you're not doing it and you're having a problem with turnover, consider that. That's a really good idea to help that person feel more connected to the company.
Yeah, I mean, playing devil's advocate here a little bit, I think one of the problems that small companies have in particular, particularly nowadays, when everybody's lean, is the idea that we can't possibly free up time for somebody to handhold, a new employee. I mean, it may be shooting yourself in the foot, but I'm just saying that there's kind of that reality there too. Is how much time can you have another employee devote to a new employee, and it's kind of one of those trade-offs. I think I could see where I know we've had problems here with that in the past. We bring on a new hire or an intern, and it's like, oh my gosh, okay, so who has time to sit down with Jane and show her, how to do this, that, and okay, well, gosh, I got half an hour. Yeah. I mean, and it's sad, but
it's probably true. It's probably more likely than this perfect environment that Jesse Lee Stoner is talking about. But again, you got to strive for that. You got to stretch, and you got to try to do that as best you can because it's the future of your company.
That's right. Okay, you can't go more than maybe a month or so without hearing of some new data breach. You had J.P. Morgan Chase recently, retailers Target and Home Depot. All those guys were hit by information system hackers that allegedly gained access to the confidential data of millions of businesses and consumers. In the article, Protecting Data from Hackers and Security Breaches, author Vincent Palermo points out how data breaches compromise consumer data, and in some cases, organizational data. And this, obviously all increases the risk of both business and personal financial fraud. Data breaches are expensive. There's no it doesn't take much of a thought to realize that, but actually Palermo points to the 2014 cost of breach study. This is the 2014 cost of data breach study global analysis from the Ponemon Institute, which estimates the average total cost of addressing a single data breach incident at $3.5 million, or about $145 for each lost or stolen record. You think about that. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of money. And on top of that, of course, forget about that. You have customers lose confidence in your business. They don't want a business that fails to protect credit card information and other personal data from you. They may want to switch to a competitor. Look at what happened. Look at what happened to Target. Look what happened to Home Depot. They took a serious hit when those data breaches were announced. Now,
stock price too.
Stock price as well. You know, I mean, they recovered from it. That's great. But I mean, it's a scary thing. So obviously, there's this risk, and where there is risk, there is, wait for it, a standard to help you address that risk. Yes, and we're talking about the standard ISO IEC 27001. In case you haven't heard of it, ISO IEC 27001 is the Information Security Management Standard. It's an internationally recognized standard that details the requirements for implementing and maintaining an information security management system, what we call an ISMS, for another acronym we can throw out there at you. Specifically, a standard specifies the requirements for forming, applying, operating, monitoring, reviewing, maintaining, and improving a documented ISMS that addresses the root causes of information security risks. So if this sounds like it might involve processes similar to ISO 9001, well, there's a reason for that. So here's a little bit of history. This is not a new standard. ISO IEC 27001 was first published in 2005, and it was based on BS 7799-2. This was a standard issued by the British Standards Institution in 2002. The original version of the standard applied the Plan, Do, Check, Act, PDCA model, then commonly used in management system standards. A revised version of the standard, the new one, 27001-2013, has adopted the framework detailed in Annex SL of the Consolidated ISO Supplement of the ISO IEC directives. If that sounds familiar, these are the mandates which mandate the common structure and terminology in all new revised management system standards. So in other words, if you are currently using an ISO management system standard of some sort, this standard should be familiar to you. The new version, the 2013 version of 27001, is going to place a greater emphasis on measuring and evaluating the effectiveness of an organization's ISMS. It also includes a section on managing outsourced IT services because, let's face it, many organizations do not directly manage their IT infrastructure. So, if this sounds like a standard you need to learn more about, well, you're in luck because Quality Digest and TÜV Süd are offering a webinar on ISO IEC 27001, Introduction and the Road to Certification, live on November 18th. That's next Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. And it's intended for information security and technology professionals and consultants. The webinar will discuss the importance of 27001 certification and describe the steps needed to obtain certification. So if you're interested, just click on the webinar link on the player page. I believe it's the last link at the underneath the player there. That'll take you out to the registration page for that webinar. So,
yeah, and that Vince is actually presenting that webinar along with yourself, Vince Palermo. So yeah, good. There should be good information there. It's interesting. We kind of started talking about that Gartner survey and brought it back with this because they're kind of linked. I mean,
yeah,
the whole
sure.
thing about cloud and security, and really this is really kind of a similar issue. It's an issue of risk and it's an issue of security. So certainly, if you're playing anywhere in that field, check that out. It should be a very, very, very informative webinar. They always are good webinars presented by the TÜV Süd team.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, that's our show. But before we close, I'd like to offer our thanks to this week's sponsor, Olympus. Discover another dimension in microimaging and metrology with test, measurement, inspection, and imaging instruments designed for high precision quality control and R&D. Olympus engineered solutions enhance quality and productivity in industrial markets around the world. For more information, click on the banner ad just to the right or just below this video player screen.
Okay. And before we go, for all of you astronomy geeks out there, this was an amazing week.
Yep.
Landing a spaceship on a comet.
How did you describe it last week?
Crazy.
It was like landing a grain of sand.
A grain of sand on a gnat.
Gnat, right?
I mean, it's just. I mean, really, if you think about it, this is amazing. I mean, the spacecraft Rosetta launched 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So 10 years ago, they figured out, it's going to have to slingshot around the moon a couple of times. It's going to have to slingshot around Mars, and it's going to hurl itself out into millions of miles of space and meet up with a chunk of rock that's 2.5 miles in diameter.
2.5 miles, going millions of miles to get
going millions of over 10 years.
Wow.
So they get to the comet, they orbit it, and then they detach another ship, and it goes down and lands on the face of the comet. Wow. It's amazing. So this year's tweet of the week is from Bob Hawkins, and it's unexpected TV pictures from the comet. We got a picture right here. There you go. That's the first live picture back from the comet. That's the comet, the 67P Churyumov-Gerasimenko.
Wow, are those
Those are comet aliens.
are those comet denizens?
Those comet denizens, and they're waving to Philae.
Cometites.
As they land on the comet.
That looks like
It's amazing.
a Muppet, I think.
Those are
but
the first pictures back from Philae on the comet. That's amazing. Okay, well, that's our show for this week. Thanks you all for joining us, and we'll see you next week on Quality Digest Live.
Don't forget about the webinar as well. Next
next
Tuesday
Tuesday.
on the 18th, you can check out that, and you can register for it on the player page. You can also check your email. There'll be another email on Monday giving you information about that, so be on the lookout for that. So yeah, have a great weekend, everybody. We'll see you next week.
So long.
Bye.